Get okay, we are recording. Thanks to everyone who's dialed in. You'll get the chance for a bit of Q&A. For people who couldn't make it, I'm going to put this up on the YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe as a minor, tip to myself. And if you do have questions, you can ping me at info@smartinsuranceSolutions.com. Okay, so today's topic is close to everyone's heart because a lot of people always say that this is the most important thing that they have to that goes wrong from on the day, race day nutrition. Okay, here we are. Whoops. Okay, so can everyone see my screen with the race day nutrition slides? Zoom so. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, great. So typically in this session, I talk about all the different distances as well, because triathlon is not only 70.3, it's not only Ironman. There are a whole world of triathlon out there that I'm very encouraging of people to try. However, I think most of the people on the call are in this for either 70.3 or full. So I do have sections on sprint and Olympics, so I'll just skip over them. But as a quick level of information, just to get for a sprint race, in terms of pre-race nutrition, not that important. During the sprint race, less important. If you're able to think about eating or wanting to eat in a sprint race, you're not going hard enough. An Olympic distance, a little bit more important to kind of fuel beforehand, because it is going to be 2.5 hours on to 4 hours long. Also a little bit of nutrition, but you can handle that by transition nutrition, as in terms of you can have a gel or something to eat in T2, you can have the same in T1, etc. Ironman and 70.3 is where it's much more important. Okay, so nutrition in itself will start pre-race, especially for 70.3 and Ironman. If you think about it, you are going to be out exercising and burning calories for full distance, for essentially a full day. Half distance, you're going to be between 5.5 hours to 7 hours out there. So you need to fuel well beforehand, and you need to fuel well during. In terms of kind of common mistakes people make, that there is people think that they have to follow this kind of old marathon kind of driven philosophy where you carbo load, which to a certain extent has been blown out of proportion, where people now sort of think that carbo loading is eating your body weight equivalent in pasta, potatoes, and anything else that has that you would eat in moderation normally outside of a race day situation. So from experiencing with myself racing, and also from people I've trained over the years, realized that carbo loading in a bad way can actually upset your race, because if you eat too much, you will only end up bloated on the day of the race. You will actually be difficulty actually trying to get food on board, and therefore you're actually setting yourself up for failure from the outset. But there is an element that we do, and you have to remember that your body's ability to store glycogen, which is essentially what the energy that when food is processed from carbs into energy, so glycogen equals energy, its ability to store that is limited. So if you stuffing in, as I said, 2 bags of potatoes is essentially not doing anything. So what I do, and what I recommend my guys do, is that you eat just a little larger portions in the couple of days to the race. As I said, 10 to 15% more that you want, but not to the point where you're actually uncomfortable eating, because at that stage, it's going to be, as I said, you're going to set yourself up for failure. Remember that to take into account that in the days leading up to a race, you'll be nervous. And also people have this mad fear that, hang on, if I got to eat too much now, and I'm tapering, so I'm not as hungry as I would be. You do need to force yourself to eat at least your normal portions, but don't do the dog on it. There are other things that you will need to, that are effective in terms of fueling for an Ironman pre-race. Avoiding roughage, because if you avoid roughage the day to beforehand, it may, and depending on your own personal digestive system, may limit your chance to need to visit the porta potty of hell. These big blue boxes are essentially portals to another dimension, which you, if you can avoid going into them for any reason where you might have to sit down, is a really good idea, especially on the race day. So I personally avoid any roughage the day before. I also cut out caffeine 3 to 4 days beforehand. I do drink a lot of caffeine in my training cycles normally. And what this has the effect of, I have caffeinated gels, which I will use on the run, which, because I've kind of caffeine starved myself, I get a bit of a kick on the day. But your real work in terms of fueling for an Ironman is around 4 hours before the race start. You don't want, again, the nerves will kick off and you will have irrational thoughts convincing yourself that you are starving to death, you're dehydrated, etc. So always have food nearby. Okay, that's pre-race. In terms of the morning of the race, actually, I will, for an Ironman or half Ironman, I will typically try to have my normal breakfast around 3 to 4 hours beforehand, and my normal breakfast would be essentially what I eat normally for a long training day. I always eat a big bowl of porridge. I eat some fruit. I have some peanut butter in there. Why? Because I know it's a good mix of carbs. Slow release carbs is better from the porridge. A bit of fruit, there was a potassium and there's minerals in there. And peanut butter, again, is a good source of energy. So I won't do anything different on race morning, but all I will have to do differently, depending on the race start, will be I'll have to eat a little bit earlier. So I think Cork is going to be a 7 o'clock kickoff. So you are literally planning to get up and start eating a big enough breakfast at around 4 o'clock in the morning. And then you're going to have to plan to get to the transition, get yourself set up. And that's when I also say there's a need to bring some easy transportable kind of easy to consume food. My go-to is banana and a bagel. I tend to avoid anything that I'll have to eat on race day. So I'm not going to, you leave the energy gels till the run or till the bike. But so, and I'll have always, as I said, so access to water, etc. Race execution, as I said, sprint, not going to go into too much, but again, spoiler alert, don't really need to worry about it, just go hard. Olympic, again, if you're eating beforehand, transition 1, transition 2, and drinking on the bike, you should be good. Okay, 70.3. Now, again, another key tip is you may be waiting around in your race day corral for, depending on where you put yourself in, you could be there for half an hour, 40 minutes as they slowly kind of ease everyone in. A nice tip to have is actually have a gel or something handy or a water bottle with you, just in case you do get that nervous feeling that I'm running out of food, or I'm running out, and you're not. You haven't burnt all your glycogen reserves at that stage standing. It's just nervous energy. But it's nice to have, if the race is delayed, that you have an energy gel just to throw in. On the swim, obviously not an awful lot you can do. You just swim away. You're not going to get, not like these long distance swimmers where they roll on their back and they drink some sort of concoction that has 3,000 calories. So our real kind of race day nutrition starts in transition 1. I personally want to get into the transition 1. I do take my time. I will rinse out my mouth of salt. I get some. I'll probably take something easy to eat again in there, like, as I said, jellies or something that's going to be nice, kind of almost like a little reward. On the bike itself, for 70.3, you want to be taking in between 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour, equates to 240 to 360 calories. Now, that's a big range. And why is there a big range? Because if you think about it, there's 2 factors. One, the size of the athlete. The bigger athlete and all the rest will need more calories to kind of due to their metabolism. They also And again, you just need to take that into account, and you'll work this out on your long rides when you've fueled yourself and when you fueled yourself badly, as in you end up bonking. This is the main thing we're trying to avoid on the bike and the run, is making sure we have adequate glycogen as we go along to make sure that the body doesn't get to that point where you're running empty and you go, okay, I can't turn the pedals anymore, I have to walk now. The body itself can absorb more calories on the bike because of the lower heart rate. Your heart rate's higher when you're running because you're kind of running straight and upright, and you're working your entire cardiovascular system, whereas when you're on the bike, you're mainly only working your legs in terms of effort. But there's two things to consider. You're also going to be crunched over in the aero position, so it's actually harder to actually kind of get stuff down into your gullet and into your stomach because you're bent over, unless you do come up and you sort of sit up and when you're doing your eating. That said, that will make you less aerodynamic and it will slow you down. In terms of the timing of when you eat when you consume your foods on the bike and to later say on the run, you need to have a strategy in terms of, and this is something you should have kind of worked out a little bit in terms of your long bikes and your long runs. Whereas you can either go by time actually on the bike or actual distance if you're kind of confident that you're going to come in roughly the same time. So, and the way you keep yourself on that, again, if you say that you need to have 300 calories per hour, you will need, you know that you need to be taking on every 20 minutes 100 calories, okay? Or if you know you're going to be cycling roughly around 30k an hour, that you can take calories on every 10k, which would be roughly around 20 minutes. All you're trying to do is making sure that you stick to a rhythm and a routine, and you know when you're going to eat. Because what will happen is, with the greatest will in the world, you come out of the swim, you think you're glad you haven't drowned, which we all are. And then you're on the bike and there's lots of cheering crowds and people are going by and you get very excited. And if you don't have a timing or distance strategy as to when to eat, you will look down and go, wow, it's an hour and a half into the bike and I haven't eaten anything. At that stage, you've actually exhausted your glycogen reserves and you're trying to kind of play catch up. Whereas if you set your watch or your bike computer to go off every 15, 20 minutes or whatever you want to, what your timing works for you, and it goes off at a beep, and you go, okay, I need to take on board a third of that Clif Bar. I need to take on board Clif Box, la la la. You've got to keep yourself regimented in terms of when you take on the food, and and how you take it on. Okay. Fluids wise, in terms of, you have to remember the maximum absorption is normally around 1.2 liters per hour. So just again, you'll need to build that into your strategy as well. What bottles are you carrying, and how often you're going to drink, and try to keep it a little bit different in terms of when you're going to eat, because otherwise you're kind of your watch goes off and go, oh, hang on, I have to eat now, or hang on, is that a drinking moment, la la la. So typically for me, I eat every 20 minutes on the bike, and I will have, for example, in Cork, I'll have three Clif Bloxs, but also I know that every 10 minutes I take a sip of my water. And I have 2 bottles. The other bottle will be isotonic, etc. Okay. So the key thing, as I said, is what between 240 to 360 calories per hour. But also you need to work out your frequency and how you're going to keep yourself on that. Another key thing is also to look at where the aid stations are on the bike. And when you're actually, if you're not going to take all the food you want with you, and mark that down on the bike or somewhere that or just remember it, that you know that the aid station's at, I think there's one at 60k, I think there's one at 40k. I have to have a look again. And you know what's there, and how you're going to actually take it on board. Okay, so essentially, and in terms of what you can eat, it actually is what you're trained with. You should have tried out kind of different versions. If it's solid you're eating, if it's Nutrigrain bars, if it's Clif Bloxs, if it's what you call it, a couple of the guys that did IRONMAN Barcelona 2 years, one of them used to use salted baby potatoes. Why? Very easy to transport, very easy to bite in, and he just didn't have an awful sweet tooth. Did he get the same amount of calories out of it? Yeah. And did he complete the Ironman? Yeah. So there's no 100%, despite what the marketing companies tell you, there is no silver bullet that you have to eat in certain quantities before, and that will get you through your Ironman. Of course, they'll tell you that their product is the one for you because they want to sell their product. I hope everyone has tried the Maurten gels at least once anyhow, because they are quite unusual. I personally find them, they will be on the course. They are actually easy enough to take on board. They're kind of like old school jelly and ice cream, and they go down easy enough. They're at all the Ironman races these days. At the other aid stations, there will be there'll be fruit. There'll be there's rumors of Tato crisps, and I'm not taking the mickey. It is apparently they did it last year and the run station, and they thought it was great. So know what's look at the athlete guide that's going to be updated in terms of what's at each aid stations and know where they are. And so in case you feel that you're not carrying enough food to cover the entire bike leg when you work out exactly what you need, you do have the aid stations to fall back on. Okay. The run, you need less carbs at that stage, but as I said, the main thing on the bike is your fueling for the run. So do not underestimate how much food you do need to take on board. And again, make sure you're keeping to the regular schedule and you're getting on board. Even if it's cold or it's hot or whatever the weather is, stick to the regimen, because the minute you start letting that slip, it's a slippery slope. For the run, you're talking about 40 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. Again, 200 to 230 to 300 calories. The difference here is that the body can't absorb more calories and can absorb less calories than on the bike, because you're running and you're moving forward and all the rest, and it's just a bit more difficult for the digestive system to work when your whole body is moving forward. So just bear that in mind. This stage, what I would recommend is you go for more liquidy type of fuels. Energy gels are better because you can also run with them. You can put them in your back of your tri-suit. Was it getting energy from Coke or Red Bull? If you've tried it, is also a good option. Whereas on the bike, you have the ability to actually store a banana, a Nutrigrain bar. You don't have that as much. The trick on the run is also just to be aware, if you take on board too much liquid, you'll end up sloshing around in your stomach, and you can give yourself GI or gastrointestinal issues, which means you feel sick and you want to slow down. So just be more sipping in terms of as you go, rather than big gulps, etc. If it's a hot day, use some of the water to cool your core temperature down by pouring it on your head, pouring it down your top. In the later ends of the run, I would recommend actually using Coke or Red Bull if that's your gig. I can't take that stuff. It gives me flashbacks to nightclubs and vodka. But they have it at a lot of the aid stations. But again, there's liquid calories in the Coke, and you'll get a bit of a kick. I tend to use that in the last 10, 15 kilometers of an Ironman run, or the last 11 kilometers of a half Ironman run, because it's pure sugar and you should get a little bit of a boost to bring you home. The other thing to be aware of as well, the other drinks you will be available for you, I believe it's Gatorade on the course for most of the Ironman at this stage. So again, just make sure you try it. If you don't try it in the next couple of weeks, try blue Gatorade, try orange Gatorade, see if you like it or if you don't like it. Because if you don't, just avoid it and use the other isotonic drink they'll have on board. These are great if you are beginning to kind of run out of energy, and also if it's a hot day and you're sweating a lot, there are electrolytes in that fluid that will help you kind of stay off a bit of cramp. But again, better to have it on board before you start feeling cramps, because you're kind of chasing the horse after the cart after the horse is bolted. That one. Okay. Bike for the Ironman. Again, it's the same gig, but let's remember we're going to be going longer. So you need to either your body can only take on board a certain amount of carbs per hour. Again, we're looking at our 240 to 360 calories per hour, but you obviously need to plan for a longer duration in terms of what your carrying food strategy is. If you know that you have to take on board like for myself, 3 blocks every 20 minutes, and that bike's going to be between 6 and 6.5 hours, that's a lot of blocks to carry. So what I will have worked out is how many blocks I think I can comfortably carry in my bike transport system, the little buoy box, and then I'll work out, okay, what aid stations am I going to pull into, and what aid station, what am I going to get? So I will 3 blocks for the first couple of the first 30, 40 kilometers, then I'll pull in and I'm going to grab a banana or an energy bar or something different, and that from that aid station, and that will be my next source of calories. And I'll have worked out what's going to be in the, roughly what's in a banana, roughly what's in the energy bars, so I know that if I'm keeping on top of my numbers. Again, fueling up well is even more important because you have a marathon coming up. But to the same point, you can't stuff yourself to the point where you feel sick, but you also just need to keep regimented in terms of, for me, as I said, it's every 20 minutes I will take on board the 200, the 150 amount of carbs I need, as calories I'm looking for, and then also I'll have a drink every 10 minutes. First one will be water, second will be an isotonic drink, etc. Run, again, same level of intake, but again, you're going for the marathon distance, so again, you just need to be aware of how long that's going to take, and also the different aid stations. I think the aid stations in Cork are every 3 kilometers on the kind of the 14k loop, so that's absolutely fine, to the point where I'm actually not going to run with any kind of gels or anything, because I know there's going to be buckets of gels and I don't need to worry about picking anything up in T2. I know that I can last 3 kilometers to grab the next one, 3 kilometers to grab the next one. And my strategy, again, keeping on top of the calories, there'll be one energy gel, the next one will be a drink, the next one will be an energy gel or a banana or something different, just to keep the body kind of having a different level of taste and exposures to kind of textures, etc. Because you can, if you just eat too many of the gels, your body can actually just sort of get you can actually just clog yourself up, if I want to put it in a nice fashion. Whereas if you're having something that you have to chew, and there's an element of you're releasing enzymes in your mouth, etc., that helps the whole digestive process, keeps the peristalsis of your esophagus moving stuff down into your lower intestine. Okay, and again, water, just sip, drink, and all the rest. If it's hot, use the water to cool your head. If you're sweating a lot, isotonic drink. Okay. Types of foods. Okay. I've talked a bit about calories, and it was only since I got into Ironman and stuff like that I actually bothered my backside to even look and see what calories are in. So bagels, 250 calories. Okay, so that's a lot of calories packed into a nice little piece of bread. Porridge, depending on the serving, you're talking 180 to 220 calories. A banana is 90 calories. Okay. Race day, as I said, the Clif Blocks, they're roughly around 30 calories per little squares. I hope you know what I'm talking about. Nutrigrain bars, which I have used beforehand because they're actually nice there and you don't have to chew too much. Another top tip is avoid foods that are going to be messy if you're going to eat it. In terms of trying to, if you You may love chocolate bars, but in terms of if that is going to get us, was it disgusting, and if it's hot and melted in your bike box bag, probably a bad idea. Something like a Nutrigrain bar or a kind of a, what they call it, a granola bar are easier to break into chunks, and also there's not an awful lot of chewing involved, because you really want to make it simple and easy to take the food on board. Also, do take foods you like, because if you like them and you're kind of semi looking forward to them, you will tend to remember it more, and you'll take on board calories a lot more easy. Honey stinger bars. I had a mad affair with these guys when I was doing IRONMAN Barca 3 years ago, and they were super calorie packed and also very tasty. Although one of the outcomes of using one of these bars for a an Ironman, you will tend to find out that you can't stomach it ever again afterwards, because it just gives you flashbacks to that moment. Dates are a super little option as well, in terms of they're not as confection orientated. They're kind of naturally it's a natural fruit, and it's also they easily go into any sort of package for the bike, and 20 of them, fine. So you just need to consume whatever one of them kind of every kind of 10 minutes if I'm trying to get up to 200 calories per half hour. So in terms of, those are the options I've used, and both of them work. I normally open this up, but there's a bigger group. I won't actually use this as a Q&A, but in terms of assuming a 3-hour bike split, how many honey stinger bars will little Stevie have to consume? And again, if we look back, what we're looking for is I need around 300 calories per hour. So I will need 1.5 honey stinger bars per each hour on my bike. Okay. And that's how it works out. So that's what you need to work out. How many hours you think you're going to be on the bike? What are the food sources you're going to bring? What do they equate to in calories? And what do you need to eat? What amount do you need to make up that 240 to 360 worth of calories? Okay. Key takeaways. You do need to practice this. Now, again, I know we're only in the last, we're in taper, and there's not an awful lot of time to talk. So I'm hoping that you have practiced this. And I know, and when I say practice, I mean you've trialed and error a couple of things, as in you've decided in your wisdom, I love Jaffa cakes, I'm going to eat all the Jaffa cakes on my bike. And then you realize, actually, Jaffa cakes fall to pieces, or they get very dry in my mouth, so I can't use Jaffa cakes. I'm going to use Maurten gels. Actually, Maurten gels work really well for me. They fit in my backpack or all my transportation very easily. And also, I know what it's like in my long rides. Take that out while I'm still cycling, opening it up, squeezing my mouth, and also safely disposing of the wrapper. By the way, do not do anything daft like start throwing wrappers around the race course, because you will get disqualified for it, and it's a terrible way to lose a race. So not only do you need how to have practiced taking them, transporting your food, eating your food on the run, but also disposing of whatever like the wrappers. Best way of doing it, just stuff it down the back of your tri-suit into your pockets. Do not let it drop out. If you do by accident, it's fine. But if you're seen chucking it into the bin, chucking it into the countryside, you will get DQ'd if spotted by a marshal. Incidentally, I did get my one yellow card. Was an Ironman of Frankfurt when I shamelessly chucked one of the Ironman bottles into what I thought was just a hedge, and I thought it was on my own, but the motorcycle guy came over, gave me a yellow card. The yellow card means you have to go to the next penalty tent, and then you have to do a stop-go penalty. It's a bit daft, but however, it could have been worse. That's also another thing. When you're on the bike and the aid stations, there will be litter zones before you arrive. Okay, so around 10 meters before the aid station starts, there's an area where you can chuck an empty water bottle and there's no issue, or you can chuck some. I actually just stick with water bottles. I'm not too sure about wrappers. So the key thing there is when you know an aid station is coming up and there'll be signs, aid station 400 meters, la la la. Drain your bottle, because you remember you'll only have a certain amount of bottle cages to store bottles. Drain your bottle, or even if it's half empty, just go, fine, I'm getting rid of it. And then when you go through the aid station, make sure you get a clear shot of going in close to the table, reaching out. And again, there's a key trick here. Let the person know that you're going to grab the bottle from them. Communicate, because lots of people will go, ooh, I'm going to go in and try to grab a bottle, except they've handed it to another athlete, or la la la, and if someone else has come in, and it can become carnage. Where if you go, shout, volunteer that ESO bottle, and point with your other hand, they'll know that you'll make eye contact. It'll be very romantic, but you know that you're going to grab that bottle. Slow down, grab the bottle, put it in your bike and your bottle cage, and off you go. Don't try to drink straight away, because there'll be lots of bottles on the floor. There'll be lots of cyclists moving in and out. And so make sure you just get it, secure it, get on the road, get back moving, and then start getting into your drinking pattern again. As I said, that is something that you just need to be very aware of. There'll be a lot of stuff going on in patients. So just be careful of that. Okay, so that was that. What I was going to say, the other point is there's no silver bullet, no silver biscuit. Play on silver bullet, like the gag. So you have to trial and error. As I said, just because your mate said he has, as I said, I loved honey stinger bars. You might try them and think they're gank and think I'm weird. However, at least you try them and you know that's not going to work for you. What you're essentially looking for is something that's going to get you the calorie numbers, and whatever how you take it in, and whatever works on your stomach, that's what you're getting for. Okay. As I said, do not listen to the marketing, that they will try to sell you all sorts. If they could sell you M. chocolate bars, I'm pretty sure they would, and they'd sell you for around $20 a go. But don't. Do plan for the aid stations. Check in the race brief this week, what's in there, what's in, and what you're looking forward to. Variety will help. As I said, I also learned from my mistakes. I did try to fuel myself entirely on Clif Bloxs for one Barcelona. And that meant that I had 27 Clif Bloxs in my system at one point, which I suspect literally all joined up and caused me some sort of essentially I became a Clif Block bar. I couldn't even move anything in, I couldn't move anything out. And anytime I tried to put anything in, I got sick. And it just meant I had to crawl along on the run. Whereas now I know that if I take on bites, something I have to chew in terms of like a banana, something salty as well, it just helps the system move everything along. Just think about it. You're trying to essentially have a day's worth of fuel or a half day's worth of fuel moving along while never stopping to sit down to digest. Just consider that. The timing is important, as what you consume. Set up alerts on your watch and your bike computer. If you're gonna do it as I said, it's every 15K, every 20 minutes? If it's on the bike and you prefer to do it every kind of 10K on the bike, or if it on the run, it's actually easier done. I actually do it by the aid stations, because I know that's 3K, 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 and I'll know that will keep me on track. And remember, the number of calories, as I said, that range is down to the fact that size of the athlete in general. Bigger athletes need more calories, and you kind of know yourself in terms of what your recommended calorific intake is. Bear that in mind. If you're kind of a heavier side, as in you're closer up to the 360 side. If you're kind of lighter side, you're down kind of like the 240. Uncertain, shoot straight in the middle. You're not gonna screw yourself either way. Okay. And also remember, the longer you're out there, the longer you need fuel. So if you're looking at completing the Ironman in 16 hours, you need to plan for 16 hours worth of fuel. If you're going to do it in 10 hours, you will need a slightly more higher calorie at the start, just to kind of get to be able to fuel yourself to go that fast, but you won't need to bring as much food as long. The other item that I also like to do, right? TDF stands for Tour de France. They say eat before you're hungry, drink before you're thirsty. So that's what you need to do. You cannot rely on your body giving you the normal signals to remind you that, you know, you're hungry. You need to feel, you know, putting your body into duress for the entire time. You should be able to, your body to a certain extent will switch off from the mind at certain points, but you need to kind of go, right, I don't feel like eating. Shut up, body. You're taking on board a certain amount of calories, because later on, when you tell me you do feel like eating, it's because all my glycogen's gone and I'm now walking a half marathon. So stick to get a plan, stick to it, know what you eat, when you're going to eat, set yourself up. Okay, alrighty. Now I am going to stop the recording now. I'm going to throw it open to Q&A. Okay, so I'm going to stop that. By the way, for anyone who just dialed in to see that, thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed it. Do like and subscribe my channel, because I'm trying to get to 2 million viewers. And then also, if you do have questions and you're down in Cork, I'll be around. So I'm happy to take any questions as long as people buy me coffee and cake. That's all I ask for, but lots of it. Okay. And okay, stop share and stop recording.